Good morning and happy hump day, everyone. Uh, well, I'll just get into it. My low is the fact that it's now been 1 week since I lost my grandmother. And, we just had the service. We had everyone come. We had, big parties filled with lots of, family and food. And we also celebrated my brother's birthday. And that really was all great. But right now, what my low really comes from is just dealing with the aftermath. Even after a week, there's still like that shock of did that really just happen? And I said that for me yesterday, that shock is continuing to present itself in the form of the fact that, I'm never going to be able to hear her voice ever again. Yeah, I can close my eyes, I can picture and hear the sound, but I'm never going to hear that voice in person ever again. So that's why it's starting to get to me a little. It also doesn't have the fact that I think I'm coming down with something, but that's neither here nor there. For my father, on the other hand, though, here's the thing about my dad, and I mentioned this yesterday too. Only twice have I ever really seen my father be weepy, per se. And, both times involved my grandmother. He told me yesterday that, because, when he works, he has a bit of a routine, especially knowing that my grandmother would come to the store every day, which, already that's a bit of a shell shock, the fact she's not there. But when he gets in through the door, it's at the door where her office used to be. So when he gets in the door, he would immediately take he'd look right and to see if she was there. And she's not there. What can I say I haven't already said before? Of course I know this stuff's gonna happen. Of course I know that one day, probably many years down the line, that's gonna be my parents, and then eventually it'll be me. Don't get me wrong, of course I do believe that something good happens when you die, if you are a good person, that is. But nobody knows. Am I really going to see my loved ones ever again? By the way, I'm not going through some sort of existential crisis, I'm really not. In fact, and again, I said this too, I've come to the conclusion that whether you die or live forever, neither one is inherently a good thing. It's just, with dying, you realize that's bad right away. With living forever, depending on who's living forever with you, it takes much longer to realize that's a bad thing. Because, if I were to live forever, and let's say I'm the only person doing it, everyone I know would eventually pass on, leaving me utterly alone. Don't get me wrong, it's not listen, I know that the Earth is doomed to blow up in about 500 million years when the sun explodes and stuff like that, and humanity will eventually die out for some reason or another. I know that. But those are the things I'd rather not see. I mean, they say, oh, you'll be dead long before that happens. Well, maybe, but, I mean, if there's a chance to live forever and no bad stuff happening, that'd be great, but that's not going to happen. But I have to say, it's been a week since she's passed, and I'm still, getting a lot of support from those who've reached out. And for that, I still can't thank you enough. I know it sounds like a broken record, but it's a broken record that, that needs to be mentioned. It's, reaching out for someone who's feeling down or feeling depressed, wishing them well. It doesn't sound like much. In fact, some people would think that on the surface it's nothing at all. But they're acts of kindness. And those acts of kindness go a long way. Speaking of which, my act of kindness yesterday was taking out the garbage for my folks, as well as helping prepare a dinner. We got a lot of leftovers, trust me. So, actually, we had a lot of garbage too. Like, we had to get 2 giant garbage bags because there was just so much stuff that we had to take care of. It was insane. And there's a whole bunch of pizza boxes that need to be recycled and soda boxes that need to be recycled. It was a lot. Which, I guess, considering the circumstances, those things tend to happen. One thing I can definitely say I'm proud of regarding this whole thing is, as sad as it's made me, I like to believe I kept my sanity. I never looked for any sort of means of temporarily feeling better, like say from alcohol or something. I like to believe I maintained my composure. I also like to believe I've done a pretty solid job of conveying my feelings to all of you. In a way that's, positive and smart and, makes it so that you guys don't have to worry, at least not worry that much. Listen, when I was a kid, I legitimately thought I'd do nothing but cry for the rest of my life if, say, any one of my grandparents died or, other relatives. And for all intents and purposes, it still made me all very sad. Really and truly it did. But I guess as you get older and you go through a bunch of stuff like I have, I guess you're kind of not numb. I wouldn't say numb, just it leaves you not as sad as you thought you'd be. Obviously I still feel very sad, but again, when I was a little kid, I thought I'd be crying every day for the rest of my life. And, I actually have to give special praise for my 3 nephews, because they actually did go to the funeral on Monday. And, they're only, the twins are only 4, and one of them's only 2. So, obviously I don't expect them to be child prodigies to immediately pick up on the situation right away. But, and maybe it's that naivete that keeps them from crying like they probably should. Because, they're little kids. They don't know any better. But, eventually they'll grow up learning that their great-grandmother loved them. Because she did. Eventually, I can definitely see a scenario where either my brother or my sister-in-law, tells them a story about their great grandma, and one of them immediately starts crying because of it for whatever reason. Either it's a very powerful story, or a moving story, maybe it's a sad story that involves something sad. My grandmother helped out my dad or something. I don't know. Something along, or their dad, or I don't know, something along those lines. You know, years later, the boys are going to realize just how special their great grandmother was. And she was. I mean, trust me, I would need like a whole week of videos to talk about my grandmother, and I still probably wouldn't have said enough. Or, actually, I probably would eventually say enough. At least I would think I would say enough. But then I realized, oh darn, I could have mentioned that too. So, I'll just say that, I mean, 1 week, about the only thing a person can do is just take things one day at a time. And the least I could really also do is be thankful for all the love and support from those who've reached out and sent their condolences. Speaking of which, to the person and family who made my family homemade ice cream, thank you very much. I already know what we're gonna do with it. See, my brother and my sister-in-law have a wedding to go to in North Carolina, I believe. So my parents are gonna watch my nephews from like Friday afternoon to probably Monday morning. And so, with that ice cream that this person gave me, we'll just give that ice cream to my nephews. That'd be fun. I'm sure my nephews are gonna love it. And it's so funny because this person actually saw my video the other day about how my brother loves cookie dough ice cream. Oh, I said that my brother loves cookie dough ice cream, even though I've never actually seen him eat it. But I don't think it's ever occurred to anyone to make like chocolate chip cookie dough and then put that in chocolate ice cream. Well, that's what this person did. They made like a homemade chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream, or triple chocolate chip cookie. The point is, it's an ice cream flavor I'd never seen before, and I'm sure my nephews are gonna absolutely love it. I mean, yeah, I could have some, and who knows? Maybe if my nephews don't wind up eating it all, I'll probably have my share as well. I mean, the guy did give it to me in a Tupperware thing, so eventually I will probably have to give the Tupperware, container, as soon as we're done eating it. But again, it just continues to follow what I said earlier. It is just a simple act of kindness. It is. But it goes so very far. I mean, much like my other two grandparents on my mom's side, I'm sure eventually it'll come to a point where I'm not thinking about them as much and therefore feeling kind of sad about it. I mean, it's still going to occur to me like I'll think of them and I'm like, oh yeah, they're gone. Like, I'm sure that's going to happen, even with my grandmother, but at least I'll go the rest of my life, like, never not thinking about them. Because I will think about them. Sure, I think about my grandfather, the one we call Bobo, all the time. So, not all the time, but I think about him every now and again. Same with my other grandmother, the one we called Nana. I think about her sometimes. And eventually that's going to be my grandmother too. And I have lots of relatives who've passed over the years. I had a couple aunts, a couple great aunts. that's really about all I know off the top of my head. But, oh, my great-grandmother, she passed away. So, and that's the thing, like, maybe I just have one of those crazy memory abilities, but I can close my eyes, picture anyone in my family who's passed away, and I can hear the sound of their voice. I mean, that's just, it doesn't make me cry or anything. I mean, I know they're gone. I know they're not going to come back. Barring some sort of absolutely crazy supernatural event, which, personally, I hope that doesn't happen. But I can at least be thankful that every single person in my family who's ever passed on has been a part of my life. Whether it was big or small or good or bad or indifferent. Like, those people were a part of my life. And that was my grandmother. She was a part of my life. 34 years, 3 months, 1 week, and 6 days. If my math is correct. That's how long my grandmother was around. I'd like to say that's pretty darn good. That's actually a lot more than what most people get. And I know, and I said this yesterday, a day will probably come where I'll have lived a life I will have lived longer without her in my life than with her. But I'm never going to forget her. Sorry this video is kind of like melancholy, but just, it's Tuesday, it's the slow part of the week. Plus, considering it has been a week since my grandmother passed, I thought it'd be appropriate to say at least a few words. I mean, no one could really give much of a eulogy actually, I really couldn't say this was a eulogy so much as it was just sharing my thoughts and feelings about the whole experience. I don't know. Maybe eventually I'll get to do something about that. I don't know. But for now, I think I'll just go on with my day. So, if you actually stayed for the entirety of this video, thank you. I really appreciate that. And, I'm very humbled I was able to convey my feelings to all of you today. I hope everyone has a wonderful Wednesday. And, I'm always free to talk or listen, whatever you want to do. Take care. Make good choices. 607 all day, baby.